intro song, right? Right? The Eye of the Tiger. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ken Maxey. I'm the Director of External Affairs at Comcast, NBC Universal in California. Let me first start off by saying I did have a stop at UDC. It was actually through my brother who went to UDC, and actually my uncle. Am I getting some feedback? No. And actually my uncle Lance Maxey, who was a swim teacher here for many years, actually has a brick outside. He passed away a couple years of leukemia, but he loved this campus and did a lot of teaching, not only of the students here, but of seniors, geriatrics, swimming. So definitely have a connection to this university. But let me just start off by saying a couple greets, because I know we have some international sisters and brothers in this room, by saying salam alaikum, salam, buenas tardes, right? You know, it's important that we actually, in our business minds and what we do in our day-to-day business, to ensure that we make other people feel comfortable. I think many times we go to universities and we get the book education, but the other part of that education is the people-to-people contact. So today I hope that if one thing you take out of my lesson is that social media is great, going on LinkedIn is fantastic, but at the end of the day, it's that people-to-people contact that you need to have for that job that you want and the job that you may not know that you want. And so let me start off by telling you a little bit about myself. These are my parents, for those that are in the room that can see them. So my parents, my mother, born in this town called Camden, Arkansas, was fortunate enough to have educated parents that were professors at the University of Oklahoma, and also at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. My father grew up in the south side of Chicago, 9 brothers and sisters, with grandparents, my grandparents, that had less than a junior high education. These two met in a place called Benson Harbor, Michigan. For those that know where Benson Harbor, Michigan is, it's pretty similar to what Washington, D.C. was, and still is, actually, in so many ways. But thankfully, these two people met after my father, who played basketball at the University of Michigan and got his master's there, and my mother, who was teaching elementary school in Michigan, actually were able to meet because she was dating his best friend at the time. But, you know, it's important that we know our history, because our history is the stories that we're going to be telling when we want that job. And quite frankly, I think sometimes it's more about the storytelling that we all are able to embark on when we are in front of those people that we're trying to impress. And sometimes we just don't know how to tell that story. So hopefully today, not only will you learn how to interact with one another a little bit more, but that you will learn how to tell your story. Because your story is the only real story that's really going to get you to that next step. So what inspired me? In my life, I was lucky enough to have a world championship team. I know Washington's still looking for that. But we had the Los Angeles Lakers. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson, for me, were very inspirational in my life. Why? Because, one, you had a person in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar who, as a Muslim American, decided that he was going to change his name and play with the name Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and be an advocate for the Muslim community through many of those years that he played for the Lakers, and has been since then. Magic Johnson, not much more than you can say, but that he's a champion, and just the heart of a champion. And many things that Mr. Orange said earlier, you have to know how to win. And if you don't believe in yourself and your story, then you're not going to win. The Cosby Show. Now, we'll take away all the other things, more recently with this whole thing. But the Cosby Show for me in the 1980s was probably the most impactful show that was on air. And the reason is positive influences, right? How many of you sometimes you leave school, you go back into your personal lives, and you forget about all the great education you just received, but you go into this life of, kind of dismay and sometimes thinking, how am I going to get out of this? The Cosby Show was that opportunity for my generation to kind of see a bigger piece of the pie and go reach for it. The gentleman that's right below the Bill Cosby Show is a professor. His name is Dr. Abbas Milani. Dr. Abbas Milani is a Persian Iranian professor who was my professor in undergrad. He made a big influence in my life. Why? Because he taught me intercultural relations, and particularly in a community where he came from, Iran, and anybody from Iran in this room outside of Dean Mo? Well, for those that know Iran, Iran used to be this beautiful country, a country where everyone, no matter what religion you were, Jews, Muslim, Christians, and all the other religious and cultural groups that lived there, including Assyrians, were able to live side by side. And so, actually, Dr. Milani was one of the main reasons for me to actually get my master's in international peace and conflict resolution at American University. He actually wrote my letter of recommendation. He actually made sure that I was doing well when I was there. The People to People organization, the ambassador program, this was a program I started when I was in junior high. And so it's actually, my trajectory actually started when I was actually in junior high, because a teacher wanted me to get into a program around People to People. And what is People to People? Does anybody know what People to People is? People to People was started during the Cold War. And the whole purpose of this was to build better relationships with the Soviet Union and America. And so through this program, I was able to meet at that time with the President of the United States and then travel to Russia and the Soviet Union. So that opened up my eyes again, right? And then lastly, how many of you ever read the book on The House of Mongo Street? Come on, people, read these books. This is a great book. And if you ever get a chance to read it, The House of Mongo Street by Sandra Cisneros is a great rendition of the experience of the immigrant to this country. Mexican Americans, where do you think is the second largest population of Mexican Americans in our country as far as a city? Anybody?
Chicago.
Where?
Chicago.
Yeah. But most people don't realize that. They would think it would be Dallas or Houston. And first is what city? Los Angeles. Yeah. But Sandra, when she wrote this book, she talked about the immigrant story and being a Mexican American, or some would call it Chicano, living in Chicago at the time. And so growing up in Los Angeles, as I did as an African American, it was important to understand that story because most of my classmates were Latino or Mexican American or from El Salvador. Similar to what Lucy, my former intern, is, when she was in high school, I ensured that she was doing some cross-cultural relationships and experiencing the African American community a lot more. But since then, she's now been at UDC now for how many years? 3 years? 4 years?
3.
So these are some of the inspirations of my life. I've had the pleasure and honor to travel to about 36 countries. Some of these are some of the experiences. I've been to Hong Kong more recently. One of the best experiences I did have was studying Arabic at the American University in Beirut, Lebanon. And that's this photo in the middle. It was a cohort that actually was through an experience at Howard University at the Ralph Bunche Center. The Ralph Bunche Center actually paid for my education at the American University of Beirut that summer. And by the way, this was right after 9/11. So it was 2002 to be exact. But traveling opens your eyes. And how many of you are from different countries in this room right now? How many of you have traveled to other countries that are not from other countries? Right? It's good to see that. Because essentially that is what America needs more of. Right now, I think it is no secret that today, more than ever, we need more ambassadors. We need more people that have this experience to communicate with one another. So, after all those inspirational things and all the traveling in my life, I had an opportunity, a great opportunity, to work on a transformable campaign in 2008. Working for President Obama in the state of Iowa, nonetheless. I was the Get Off the Vote director in the largest county of Iowa, called Polk County. I had the opportunity to work for this man. I never worked in the administration for him, but what I did learn in my short period of meeting with him and working for him in Iowa is that this country was going to experience great change. And I think we did. But what I think we all have figured out is one person can't change everything.
Amen.
Right? And I think you got to keep that in your mind. One person can't do everything and can't change this country to be what it isn't or what it is. It takes all of us. Yep. And so no matter who's in the White House, be it President Obama, God bless, I wish he was still there, or if it's President Trump, we have to still make sure that we as citizens of this country and as students of this country are continuing to be engaged in this process and let them know that we're engaged in this process. So, let me go back. This is last one. So, after my opportunity with President Obama, I had the opportunity to make a decision. I could go work for the Speaker of California's Assembly, or I could go work for a company called Comcast. And I saw the hands here, so I see that a lot of people here actually have Comcast or have failed to Comcast. I gotta be honest with you, when I first had the option to work for Comcast, I didn't want it. In fact, I didn't want to work for a corporation. It was really hard for me to grasp that me, the person that had traveled to all these countries, that had worked with people in the community, was actually going to work for a company that made money. But I'll tell you, it took 6 months for me to get over that. And the reason is because the position that I have, I work and do corporate responsibility, community relations, government affairs. And in my position, I get to interact with a lot of elected officials, nonprofit organizations, and I get to have a budget to actually support those organizations. So I feel all my experiences are coming to one point to where I can support that women's group that may be needing some support. Or I might need to support a new immigrant organization that needs support from Comcast. And yes, believe it or not, some of the dollars that you spend go to great organizations across this country. How many of you are interested in corporate responsibility, just out of pure excellent? Mm-hmm. It was never something that I ever dreamed of actually doing. And so when I had the opportunity, I took a step back, talked to my advisors, my brother, probably Simone was one of them, my mother, my father, and I said I'm going to try it out. And then I didn't even bring my car from Los Angeles to the Bay Area. But after 6 months, I called my friend, and he drove my car up, and I'm happy to report I have not taken my car back from Oakland, California to Los Angeles in 6.5 years. So, and you'll see that my presentation is, somewhat a little bit all over the place, because there's so many things that make up what we are as human beings, and I want to address sometimes the cultural aspects to all this, because we as students of life need to know that essentially for us to be successful in life, it takes things like learning a person's culture. And in cultural symbols, for example, does anybody know what this means in Arabic? It's already up there. Yeah. Al-Hub. Al-Hub. right? Now, hug means love, but for me, I put this up there and I say love your job, because quite frankly, if you don't love your job, you're not going to be successful in it. And one of the challenges I think many of us are faced with is you're being bombarded with all these, you have to go this way, you have to do this. You have to go to STEM routes. You have to do a startup. And let me just tell you for right now, if you're not happy in doing that, you're going to fail. And there's nothing wrong with failing. But at the end of the day, why do something that you don't like? Be in a position that you can make a difference and be impactful. So love your job. Does anybody know where this symbol's from? Which part of the world? West Africa. And it means humility and strength. One of the things I think you gotta have in your professional career is humility. Too many times, I think we go into a job thinking, I just have to be the most confident person in the world. I have to tell them I'm the best. But it's also good to be a little bit humble. Because life is not all about, you shining all the time. In fact, sometimes life is more about you not shining so somebody else can shine, and so then you can benefit from that, and then you rise up. Because quite frankly, if you want to be a star, the best way to be a star in business is not by doing everything. It's actually by finding someone else that's as smart as you to do that work for you. Yin and yang. How many of you have seen this symbol, I'm sure, many times? Okay. How many of you actually have this in your life? Man, well, that's the problem. See, today, in this age of technology, we're so, what's that? Yin yang?
Yeah, the shackle yin and yang. I'm asking the question. Is that yin and yang?
Yes, yin and yang.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Yeah. It is yin and yang. And basically what I have this here for is because it's balance. Balance in your life.
No, it's because the second is religion. It's a bunch of religion. There's only peace. We may take it from around and think about.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But no, so yin and yang, if you don't have balance in your life, how successful do you really expect yourself to be at your job? How many of you have a regimen that you go work out, you do some yoga, some me time? But I can tell you right now, that's not the case for most people. And it seemed like it wasn't. When I asked you guys to raise your hands, most of you said, I don't have balance. So maybe I should ask this other question. How many of you actually have balance in your life? Okay. Maybe you didn't understand yin and yang. But balance is really important. Condoleezza Rice would wake up every morning at 4:30 in the morning to get her to jog. Yeah. And so, if you're not exercising, if you're not doing some of these things that balance your life out, then, I can tell you for me, what I do. I have a regimen where I'm doing either something spiritual or physical to equal my life out, because the days in and days out of dealing with individuals can be a bear. And being on technology is even more of a bear, because you're 24/7 being responsive. It used to be, of course, that firefighters and policemen were the only ones that were 24/7. But now we're all 24/7, all the time. And so you need to take a step back and try to realize that life is not all about work. How do we communicate? So I have these three photos here. One's, of course, of my favorite president, with the Pope, right? And then I see a group of ladies speaking. I see our current president, Donald Trump, speaking with the Prime Minister of Britain, of the UK. And then I have, next to it, all these social media pathways of communication. I'm sure we use many of you use Twitter? All right. Facebook? All right. YouTube? LinkedIn? Pinterest? How many of you use all these? Thank God. Oh, wow. Use all of them? Wow. You have a lot of followers. So. The reason I have these side by side is because it takes a lot more energy to handle and manage this than it does to manage and figure out a relationship with a person. But because we are taught in today's society that the only way is technology, we find ourselves stuck. And that stuck is that we are not communicating with one another. I was at a dinner table the other day at a restaurant, and I swear across the table, though they were millennials, they were on a date. And the two were at the same table, and they were on their phones talking to each other, it seemed like. There's something seriously wrong with that. And in the business world, I don't think, and I come from the Silicon Valley. Yes, everyone probably uses half of these in the Silicon Valley. But I guarantee you, it's the handshake, it's the one-on-one relationship that you develop with that individual that's going to get you that job. So in the next 3 minutes, I want you all to stand up. Right now. I want you all to stand up and meet somebody, introduce yourself, and then come back to your table after 3 minutes.
I didn't
Twice. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I want to hear how it went. Anybody want to volunteer? Who did they meet? I want somebody to tell me who they met today for the first time. Anyone? Go on.
So I met someone named Charmaine, who just left. And come to find out, we have a friend in common. And so my very good friend is her very good friend. And we're from the same country. Very small circle. How about that?
That's awesome. So isn't that what Facebook says they do too? I'm just saying. Anyone else? Anyone else meet someone new? I feel like Montel.
Hi, I had the opportunity to meet Simone Ward, and she works with the Rockefeller Family Fund, and I just realized we have similar interests in regards to women's issues, for women in regards to economical education, so I'm interested in financial literacy, and she does that work with women and girls.
Anyone else?
As I go for the carrot cake, I met Miriam, and she is the president of the Student Association, graduate level, and she's working on her MBA. She's graduating in May, and her undergraduate is accounting. And she's going to go for her PhD, and she's looking to, she's a very, very people's person, so she's not sure she's going to go after the CPA, but she's definitely going to go after the dollars.
Is there anyone else? Okay.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Moisette, and I work for DCRA. We issue every business license in the District of Columbia. And I walked in today and I said, she looks really familiar. So we introduced each other, and actually we met several times. She attended several of the big workshops I do at the DC Convention Center, which is Brooklyn, DC, and Entree in DC. But the one that she attended was in construction, and she owned an apartment building, and that's how we knew each other.
So, I guess I proved a little bit of a point today with that point. Now I want to talk a little bit about startups. And I'm going into this really quickly because I don't want to go too much in depth about it. How many of you are interested in starting a startup? And just out of curiosity, for those that want to share, what would it be about?
My ideas about the startup is like IT support for export and import companies. We're dealing with customs documentation, which is necessary since it's global trade is really popular and it's really active all over the world. So that's one of the ideas. The other idea is to create several applications for business and also for universities. That's it.
So you might want to meet the chamber, the CEO of the chamber. Anyone else have the startup idea that they want to share?
Hi everybody, my name is Richard Avery. So my startup is actually an animation company that I'm hoping to get off the ground soon. Animation is one of my loves in life, and since I'm trying to do more of the African American aspect of it, there's no one to see many of us in animation that one. So that's my startup.
First of all, everyone should realize that a startup takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So number one, let's give those folks that have the ability to stand up and say they're going to start a startup, let's give them a round of applause. But in this presentation, and like I said, I'm running out of time, but the duration of a startup, it takes effort and a lot of touch points. But one of the things that usually are not in the startup diagram is the people-to-people contact, right? And so if you come down to where in this mapping, it kind of talks about how many people need to view what your startup looks like. 1,000 users, right? How are you going to get to 1,000 users if you don't know people? Right? So I want to do this quickly because Lucy told me I have no more time. 5 strategies to your success. 1, mentorship. And this is a quote by Oprah Winfrey. How many of you actually mentor anyone? How many of you actually have mentors? Would anybody like to share what their mentor looks like and why they asked that person to be their mentor?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gloria Davis. My mentor was my pastor. What does my pastor look like? Female, strong, people person, honest, love the Lord. And she mentored me for 5 years in the direction of me being an evangelist, which I did not pursue. Well, I pursued temporarily. But anyway, she mentored me in reference to being an evangelist, which in turn had me go out to talk to people. And our people were youth people that we were trying to bring into the church, trying to take them off the street, and trying to give them some directions of life. It was great. What does she look like? I'm not quite sure I understand that question.
Just, you explained it already.
Oh, okay. Is that enough?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next one. Professional memberships. How many of you belong to a professional organization outside of coming to this college or this university? And for those that don't, why not? And for those that do, isn't it beneficial for you? Doesn't it provide you that opportunity to network and meet other individuals that are going to hopefully one day provide you an opportunity with a job? So for those that are in the room today, if there's one thing that I would say out of these 5 steps, professional memberships is really a no-brainer. Make sure you get involved at least with one organization that's going to propel you and help you with your job first. To whom much is given. I know I do corporate responsibility, but that's not the only way that you can actually participate in the community. How many of you sit or work with a nonprofit organization today? So I'll take personal privilege on this one because my brother is here. Sean, my brother, is working with the Special Olympics. And how many of you know what the Special Olympics is? So he's been working with the Special Olympics for some years now, and I can just say the joy that he gets out of that and the relationships that he's built after the last 5 years have been international. So what I would say to you in this room today, even though it might not be something that you may want to do, find that nonprofit that you can go give your time to so you can have, and who knows, you might find your next job in that nonprofit world. So for those that aren't part of the nonprofit, please get involved in the nonprofit. Your health is your wealth. This goes back to the yin and yang, right? The balance. And making sure that you're doing something for you. Not for the company, not for UDC, but for you. Because at the end of the day, the only person that really matters is you to yourself and in how you're going to live your life and how you're going to keep yourself healthy. And then communication. I cannot stress enough the importance of what communication really means to you becoming the leaders of tomorrow. If you do not have the opportunity, or if you don't put yourself in the opportunities of which you are sharing your stories and communicating, more than likely you're going to be mid-level your entire life. Those that communicate and share their stories are the ones that get to be leaders. And then my final thoughts. Michael Jordan. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games, 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. So I stress upon you, it's not about how many times you failed, it's about what did you learn about those times when you failed. In those startup opportunities that you're going to be doing, not everything's going to be peaches and cream, right? You may fail once, you may fail twice, you might fail 3 or 4 times. But at the end of the day, how did you learn from those failures? So, with time, I will say thank you for allowing me to be your speaker at this first annual luncheon, but I want to throw a big shout out to Dean Moe and Lucy Diaz. For those that don't know Lucy, I want you to stand up. Lucy Diaz. As I shared earlier, Lucy was an intern in my office over 12 years ago. And ever since then, I've been so proud of her. She's gone on to UC Davis. She's gone on to work at NATO. She's learned Arabic. So it's something that I would say to all of you, find a mentor. She found me, I didn't find her. But I will be forever grateful to her because the relationship we've created has been more like a family than anything else. So thank you for your time. If there's any questions, I'll be around the rest of the day. Thank you.